Greetings, my tasklings. Today, I would like you to flutter away, fly over the rainbow, and tell me everything you can about ngā manu o Aotearoa, New Zealand's native birds.
I'm going to talk
Flutter
about
back
bats.
soon with lots of cool stories. I swear to God, if you bring up that goddamn bat, actually do it. Super cute. I don't mind. Welcome back, my flappy little friends. I hope you've all come back with lots of delicious facticles for me. And I would like to start tonight with Nathan Kenny.
Oh, so I'd like to start with a great fact, but one that I think is a little bit common knowledge in avian circles. So I think Tom might bring it up if I don't.
Let's get it in here.
I'm going to go with kiwi. Do you know that kiwi, them of the big nose, big beak, have the shortest beak in the world? Because
I didn't know that, Kenny.
Oh, I think I know what
the
this
way
is.
that you measure their beak length, if you're an ornithologist, is you go from nostril, nostril to the tip of the beak. And because kiwis dig around in the undergrowth looking for, greeblies, their nostrils are at the end of the beak so they can smell things. And so end of the beak to the end of the beak is not very far. So they have the shortest beak in the world of any bird.
Except
So
that
cool.
no ornithologist actually does that. No ornithologist will go, well, I guess that's where we've got to measure. If that's how we said we'd do it, we're going to have to ignore all this other part of it.
I know
I
a
guess
lot of
the skull.
anally retentive scientists who would disagree with you, Dylan.
and they should be fired. They are actually bad at their jobs.
Fight.
Okay, so Nathan's got a cool fact, and Tom is fighting with all the world's ornithologists, which is fun.
I can start off a very good fight with all the world's ornithologists by just simply saying that birds are reptiles, and I'm right. Birds
It's
are
a fairly
reptiles.
common taxonomic decision, though, isn't it?
It is, but it really upsets a lot of people.
Oh.
Birds are dinosaurs. Yep.
Birds are dinosaur. I know that because Sam Neill taught me.
Sam, I would like you to give me a bird-related fact, please.
Did you know that this year was the year of Underbirds Are Go?
Yes, that's so cute.
That was the theme for the Bird of the Year this year. In New Zealand, we have Bird of the Year, and we don't mean like some sexy lady. We mean a sexy bird. This year, it was won by the rock wren. The theme was Underbirds Are Go because they wanted sort of the less common ones to have a chance at winning it. And saying that, there's only one bird that's ever won it twice, and that bird was the kakapo, which happened in 2020. But oh my God, that year, controversy. Because the kakapo did not win the popular vote. The albatross did. And then the kakapo went on to win. And then they looked and they thought, wait a minute, there's been a bunch of voter fraud in the New Zealand Bird of the Year competition. One IP address entered 1,500 times. That's a lot. But my favorite fact that I found out was that companies get behind certain birds and really go for them. The adult toy megastore, it's a sex shop. They got behind the hee-hee, great bird, and they got behind it because it practices consensual polyamory.
The rock really could have gone out there for the rock wren, right?
The rock wren, right?
Yeah.
Instead, it was only supported by small entities like the Green Party of New Zealand Parliament. Tom, do you have an actual bird-related fact, please?
I have an actual bird-related fact, and that is that the takahe, friend of the show, the takahe, and non-relative of the pukeko, formerly extinct takahe, no longer extinct takahe, poos 9 meters long in a single day.
Same. That's my spirit
That's
animal.
impressive. They're not that big.
What are they doing? Like
Poo up
spaghetti
to
poo? What is
9
this?
meters in a day because they are vegetarian. From a distance, I guess it's spaghetti because it's 9 meters long, but it's they eat lots of vegetables. It's really lots of fiber, low nutrients. So it means they have to eat lots and lots of it because they've got to get as much nutrients as they can, and so they just shit heaps.
I don't eat the base of tussock grass, so it's slightly different.
Yeah, okay.
But
Does that mean that those gorgeous tiny baby takahe that just basically look like sentient soot sprites, they're pooing, what, like 4.5, 5 meters?
I don't know how proportionate.
Perhaps that's why they're so endangered. Like any other bird, you have to like hunt it down really hard, and maybe they fly. These are flightless, and they have an arrow pointing towards where they are.
One of my favorite things, speaking of that, is that I used to be, and this is going to come up later on as well. I used to be a tour guide on the Otago Peninsula, and so I looked at a whole lot of birds. And the yellow-eyed penguins you'd figure out exactly where they'd nested overnight. Hoiho, because they'd poo, and because they've got projectile poo, they just basically fire it out, and so there'd be this kind of like fit fan of hoiho poo that would point to where they had been lying the night before.
They use that to locate penguin populations in Antarctica now. They fly drones overhead rather than physically going in and like looking for penguins. They fly drones overhead, but rather than looking for the penguins, they just look for the poo circles, and then in the middle of the poo circle is penguins. Sam, can I have another fact from you, please?
Yes, I would like to tell you about migration. Migration is interesting. There is a bird called the bar-tailed godwit that breeds in Alaska, but then it flies all the way down to the Firth of Thames and Farewell Spit, and I don't know, does whatever birds do there. And it comes via East Asia, so it does a 29,000 kilometer circuit, and it flies for 8 days straight without stopping in each direction, which is pretty amazing.
They're really cool. There's a Twitter account that you can follow them on, because a lot of them have been ringed and tagged.
In which case, because you know this, I'll do my second favorite fact about migration, which is actually my first favorite. I just did that one because it's about birds, and I'm going to tell you about monarch butterflies, which are even better because they migrate.
Monarch butterflies, the Liverpool of this podcast.
They migrate. It takes them 14 generations to migrate, and the last part of that migration, they follow the scent of the corpses from last time's migration. That's how they know where to go.
So dark.
They're badass, those monarchs. That's what the kings and queens in England do as well. That's why they're called monarch butterflies.
Yeah, that's how King Charles knew how to find his way to Buckingham Palace.
I mean, he did walk behind her coffin for an awfully long way.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah, just sniffing his way with his big old
ears.
Tom.
The male black robins know how to make a happy wife. You see, so black robins, the cutest little puffballs of black, they are a monogamous species, and so the female typically sits on the nest, and the male will go and bring her food. And what a researcher found out, Rachel Shaw, she found out that the males can actually pick up on the signals that the female sends and actually bring her favorite foods. So they can figure out what she wants by just paying attention to how she behaves.
Like Uber Eats.
I think it's a great lesson for all of us men. Get a black robin to do your work. They're great.
That's amazing. I like that it sounds like this is, I'm sure this is a very scientific paper, but I also love the idea that maybe all it was he brings one kind of thing and the female just goes, and then he brings something else and she just goes, nom, 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 nom. And they're like, wow, he's so clever. How does he know what she likes?
I've read that article, and no, he would just come back with the food that she wanted.
I'm calling that back to like conversations I've had, like, what do you want for dinner? You choose. And then I've offered like so many different options, and then it's just like, stuff it, I'm going with the first thing. So maybe that's
not as smart as Black Robin. Sorry, Kenny.
Did we check to see if the female Black Robin was just being polite?
Mm-hmm.
They're not polite.
Oh, that's so nice.
There's some early research that shows that female black robins are the least polite of all the birds.
Okay, that makes makes sense.
They will ask to speak to your manager.
They interviewed them and they told them to fuck off.
Robins are the new Karens.
They are rude.
Nathan Kenny, can I please have a fact?
Oh, so you guys know who wears the pants in moa relationships?
No one. They did.
Well, but also they're birds, they don't tend to wear pants. But so for a long, long time, people who counted the number of moa species counted wrong, because I believe it's 13 separate moa species they've postulated. I may be wrong on that number, but the fact I'm going for is, of these species, one of the species, the biggest species, Dinornis, every time they found it, the long bones of the moa, you can tell whether a bird is female or male because in the long bones, females,
the lipstick,
they're thick. No, they have calcium deposits that are for laying eggs, right? You put the calcium in there, and then when you need to take it out to make an egg, you use it. And the biggest one's always female. And this was a bit weird, right? And until the age of DNA testing came about, and they tested one of the, it's not the smallest, but one of the smaller species, which always seemed to be male. Lo and behold, the biggest species and one of the smaller ones, so we're talking about a difference of between 34 and 85 kilos for the males and a hefty 240 kilos for the females.
Nice.
So a big difference, like 3 to 8 times the weight.
Whoa.
So all the males were little and all the females were big. So they thought they were
Death by snoo.
Death by snowstorm.
And that's why there's no moa anymore.
Tom, do you have an adorable fact for us?
So we know about the toroa, the albatross, the northern royal albatross that lives in Taurua Head in Dunedin. If you're visiting New Zealand or you live in Dunedin, you should go and visit it because it is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. It's amazing. And a little side fact on them: they will go for 6 years without touching land. That's not my fact. 6 years. Most of that spent touching water, but they will when they leave for their first trip out after they've kind of reached adulthood.
Water's just liquid land. Everyone knows
when
that.
they first trip out, when they first start experimenting with drugs. And...
when they literally trip out of their nest and just get momentum. But Taurua Head. So there were very few albatross on there, and then one ornithologist basically spent like months camped out there protecting all the albatross. That was the precursor of the albatross colony that's now protected up there. And one of the first albatross was an albatross that later on, I suspect, became called Grandma. And Grandma lived to be over 60 years old, which is pretty good for an albatross. But I'm going to tell you about Grandma's, her love life is worthy of a movie. So when she first began to live in Taurua Head, she had a partner, and they lived together for quite a long time. I think it was about 20 years or so. And then he passed of old age or something, just never came back. And so she got together with a much younger male, and they were together for a couple of years, but it just didn't work out. Something about the relationship, he might have been too immature, we don't know. But
was that
they separated. It was me, and I miss her. But they separated. They actually separated, and she ended up with another male, and they lived together for another very long time. And then he passed away, probably of old age or something. And then Grandma's
I feel like she was shagging them to death.
Yeah, well,
Shag's a different bird.
But so Grandma now, her next partner died. She gets back together with her previous younger lover, who obviously had taken some time to mature and was now ready to be the man that she needed him to be. And they stayed together until she passed away or disappeared out at sea one day, over 60 years old. So yeah, Grandma is an absolute legend of albatross.
Neighbours wishes they could write that kind of storyline. That's amazing.
That colony has some seriously good scandals. They had a threesome. They had a threesome albatross pairing. So there was two males and one female. That didn't last for long. There's a gay couple, two females, and which is really useful for the rangers, because if it gets abandoned, they can actually give it to the lesbian albatross and they'll raise it. So they've been foster parents a lot of times. Yeah, there's some really lovely stories.
Isn't there a thing where the only monogamous penguins on record are a gay couple at Kelly Tarleton's who have raised a bunch of eggs to adulthood?
They're absolute icons.
Tom, are any of your albatross friends called either Albert or Ross?
I'm almost guaranteed, Sam. There's a lot of dipshits in the ornithology community.
Really coming hard for the ornithologists, Tom. This is a controversial podcast.
Speaking of coming hard, that Grandma you were just talking about.
Probably why she left that younger lover.
Right, Kenny, can you please get us swiftly back on track?
So you may have, in your travels around New Zealand, if you've been here, stopped by the famous Little Blue Penguin colony in Oamaru, where you can, any evening pretty much that you wish, sit in a grandstand that's just by a beach and see all these adorable little clumsy idiot penguins trip over themselves as they come out of the water. Oh, you can fly. Like, okay, let's be shit on land instead and not be able to fly. They're actually Australian. So
here we go.
The only New Zealand little blue penguins are found in the North Island. Something, probably people, because let's face it, people are jerks, wiped out all of the South Island New Zealand little blue penguins about 400 years ago. And again, DNA testing by a good friend of mine called Stephanie. So she went and tested bones from midden sites, dating back hundreds and hundreds of years, modern day penguin populations here and in Australia. And the Australians have invaded, and they're taking over from the south. So watch out.
Well, one of the ways we know actually that it's actually ended up working out well for the tourism industry, because the New Zealand little blues, one of the famous things that that little blues do is that they do the rafting. So they'll probably oil slicks, and they'll all run in at the same time, which is great as a spectacle. But that's the Australian penguins. The New Zealand penguins don't really do that so much.
Oh, I've got another good fact about the Australian penguins. The reason the Australians are taking over is they do something called double clutching, which sounds funny. But what that means...
It's actually referencing... so it doesn't sound random at all. If you know the Fast and Furious movies, that is something you should be doing.
What that means in a penguin context is they have 2 offspring a year instead of just 1.
Wow.
And that gives them a natural advantage.
They also live a quarter mile. Yeah, they also live a quarter mile at a time, and it's all about family.
Penguins should not be associated with Fast and Fury.
No.
You guys have never seen penguins fighting. It is fast and furious and hilarious. It's a slap fight. It's just them waving their wings as fast as possible, but it hurts. I know a penguin researcher got his hand broken by a penguin wing. Hit him so
I feel
hard.
like that's something I wouldn't tell people because that seems embarrassing for him. Sam, can you provide us with another fact, please?
I can. And about time to start talking about some things that I know about now. We've talked about birds. I want to talk about the fact that the moa was born the same day as the Empire Strikes Back.
What?
How does that work? Well, when I mean the moa, I of course mean Anika Moa, who I've met. We've harmonized together. By that I mean she was on 7 Days and she was singing a song from Greece, and I know those songs, so we sang together, and she said that I had a fairly good voice, and I said thank you. Anyway, she was born on May the 21st, 1980, which was the exact same day that The Empire Strikes Back came out, and another friend of the podcast was also born that day, Gautier. You know, somebody that we used to know. And my link to birds is that her name was Moa, and that's a bird. So
yeah, thank you. That was great. Well, thanks. On that bombshell, I'm going to have to briefly interrupt this session while we have a short word from our sponsors. So I've been asked to read some prepared remarks. Hello, we are Bird. Bird have noticed that when humans need to go other places, they use legs or smash tiny bits of dinosaurs together to hurl metal along with them trapped inside. Bird ask, why not fly? Bird fly. Bird fly over long, long oceans. Bird fly high in the sky. Bird fly over car and do poos on it. And wheeze, same time. Bird efficient. Humans not fly because human bones are big and silly and heavy and not full of air and freedom like bird. More bird. Up gravity. Use promo code BONER420 for 20% off your first flying related leg race.
Hollow Boner 420.
Damn it, it should have been Hollow Boner 420. I'll write to the sponsors and get that changed for next week.
And I notice how birds speak an awful lot like Russian people.
It turns out all that Russian interference in Bird of the Year was actually just other birds. Kitty, do you have another fact for us, please?
I do have another fact. Do you guys know who I mean if I say Richard Owen?
Yes.
So Richard Owen, famous for describing dinosaurs, famous for setting up the Natural History Museum in London. So Richard Owen was a comparative anatomist who made a big deal about being God's own gift to comparative anatomy, and he got sent a bone by a guy called William Williams.
Is it because Mr. Owens was like, throw me a bone, and William Williams was like, here you go, boink.
From all the way from New Zealand, and Richard Owen had made a big deal, like we're talking about, inviting everyone along to the Royal Academy to listen to this big speech where he told everyone about how he was a brilliant anatomist because he deduced in the most fascinating way that this one bone, which was a broken femur from a moa, belonged to a giant bird, which sounds impressive. I mean, deducing that sort of thing until you realize that, okay, birds have a characteristic bone structure. It observed this, and it was big, so it was probably a big bird. It becomes less impressive again when you realize that William Williams had sent along with the bone a letter saying that it came from a bird that was big. In quite some detail, because he'd spoken to all the local Maori about the legends of big birds.
Did that letter describe the way to how to get to Sesame Street as well?
Sam.
I looked up Kia as the airport code. I thought, oh, there must be an airport. Every airport has a 3-letter digit code. Which one is Kia? And it turns out this amazing place called Kirki. It's in Turkmenistan. It's the second biggest airport in the Labap region. Huh? It has a capacity for 100 people. Yet in the airport they have 120 seats and then a 30-seater cafeteria. It can fit 2 big planes and 4 helicopters. And another thing I found out about it is that it was born the same day, David, that Britney Spears asked a judge to end her conservatorship, which was the 23rd of June in 2021 last year. It's a new airport, and I didn't know till right at the end. So that was quite exciting for me to find out about the Kia airport, which is in Turkmenistan, very close to Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. Thank you so much for listening to my fact about birds.
Tom.
A fantail got Maui killed.
What?
This
Is
my
this
favourite
Hene
thing.
Nui Te Po?
Hene Nui Te Po. So
It's from the
we all
movie
know,
Moana.
Moana. This is actually the edited scene at the end of Moana. So Maui.
I guarantee
in,
Taika would have put this scene in.
He absolutely should have. So in Maori legends, Maui was kind of our, I guess, a trickster god. He was kind of the hero. You know, it was like a lot of different kind of equivalents that you'd find in other areas. Like he was our Prometheus, he was our Hercules, he was all these different things. Took fire, slowed the sun. What can I say? But he
Fished
also
up the
decided
North
that-
Island.
exactly in his last big task, he decided that he would stop death. He would bring immortality to humanity.
Oh.
And so he thought the best way to do it is to kill death, who is Hene Nui Te Po. Now, the story of Hene Nui Te Po is absolutely tragic, but the only way to get in to do it was to kill her from the inside, and the only way to get inside of her was through her vagina. So he started crawling in, and he told all the birds to shut up. And unfortunately, the fantail found his flailing legs halfway into the goddess of death's vagina. So funny that it started to laugh, woke her up, and she chopped Maui in half with her vaginal obsidian dentata. What can I say except you're welcome?
You really buried the lead on Hene Nui Te Po having vagina dentata until right at the end there, and I applaud your restraint.
There was a movie that came out and it was called Teeth. And I was really
Yes.
excited about seeing it because I'm a dentist. And then it turned out to be about vaginas, and that's fine.
This poor Sam coming out of it going, it wasn't anything like I thought it was going to be.
We did
I'm
not
not
learn
gynecologist.
about this.
Well, Sam, would you like to teach us about something with one more very quick fact?
Do you know how long it takes to get from Kia to Kakapo?
10 minutes.
It's a 7-hour drive. Kia is a town in Cornwall, and Kakapo Energy Limited is a thing that I found in York, which is in the UK.
How do you spell Kia in Cornwall?
It's spelled K-E-A.
My
The
dad is from
same
Cornwall,
way,
and I have
David.
never heard of this. Tom, quick fact, please.
So there's the lancewood in New Zealand, or the horueka, which is a tree that basically, for the first 3 meters of its growth, basically grows as this gigantic jagged javelin. The leaves are incredible, basically like gigantic blade swords.
They're
And
awesome.
it's believed that this is because of the moa, because once it gets to about 3 meters tall, it suddenly starts to grow like a normal tree. And that is as tall as a moa can get. And one of the big bits of evidence for this is that in the Chatham Islands, where the horueka is also native, it does not do this. The horueka grows like a normal tree the entire way up. And guess what there isn't in the Chatham Islands?
Electricity.
Moa. Actually, they have electricity.
So cool. Kenny, last minute effort.
There was an eagle that grew in New Zealand called Haas eagle, which was the heaviest eagle that ever existed. It grew to about 15 kilos. It was massive. And it evolved incredibly quickly from a little eagle from Australia called the little eagle. And in the space of a little bit under 1 million years, it evolved from being a little eagle into a big one.
Yeah, what I love about that, Kenny, is that the biggest eagle on the planet also lives in Australia, the wedge-tailed eagle. So it's like you could have just made a much quicker trip if you'd gone with the wedge-tailed eagle, but nope, you had to go with the little eagle first.
I do know that Haast eagles regularly carried off sheep when the European settlers first got here, and there are stories of them.
Oh,
No,
Oh,
they died
is
out
that
in
not Haast
1400.
eagles?
They died off in about 1400.
Yeah.
But
There
there
was-
are
Kenny! Jen
There
is
is
the fact controller today. You can't just say
but it's
no
not
like
true.
that.
They died out in 1400 or so.
Well,
There
that
There are
is
stories of
disrespectful.
massive birds taking sheep in the very early days of European settlement here.
There was actually
It's-
ancient helicopters.
Okay, probably carried off kids in the first couple of hundred years
Kids.
of human settlement. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a cave painting that I went to a talk on, and he was wondering why they'd painted this beautiful big picture of a Haast eagle in this cave, and then he was like, probably a warning sign.
They found lots of fractured vertebrae, not vertebrae, fractured pelvises from Moa, and it's not because of the snoo. It's because of the way that Haast eagles probably preyed on things, is they dive from a great height and just smack into them. And
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We need to go through who is the winner of this. There have been some amazing facts. Sam, I love that you brought up the Russian interference in Bird of the Year. Thank you. That's my favorite political scandal ever.
You're welcome.
Kenny, Moa being short kings will never not make me happy. Tom, I want a mini series about Grandma's love life, and I want you to write it. Sam, I think Kia Airport in Turkmenistan is adorable. I love that there's a new airport last year that's just extremely cute.
Yeah.
Tom, I love facts about plants growing actively to avoid predation. I think that's really cool and clever. But I think Kenny's taken it out with the last fact, because Haast eagle's a boss. Congratulations, Kenny.
Good job, Kenny.
I didn't expect that. So.
Who would have thought that the one vegetarian on the team would
Yeah.
get a win with a prize about carnivores?
About
Well,
Unfortunately,
delicious birds.
Your prize this week is a bucket of deep fried Moa. So sorry about that. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and please like, subscribe, share with your friends. Leave us a comment telling us your favorite fact about a bird from where you live, or if you live in New Zealand, about your favorite New Zealand bird. And we will see you all next week.